Yesterday we went 5 years into the future to see what happened to Guernsey after I left, and it's safe to say they're in a bit of a pickle financially. And before we look at Guernsey 10 years in the future, and then later in this video, 25 years in the future, I was looking at my favoured personnel on my manager profile here, and there's some familiar names, and some of my students, they've gone on to become teachers. Aaron McKillop, apparently more of a director of football than a manager, but currently manager of Wycombe Wanderers, who, drumroll please, are 12th in the National League. It's not the greatest of achievements, but give him some credit. And to be fair, it is better than the likes of Greg and also Abubakari, who, they're managers, they're just, no one's employed them yet. Similar story with Kuaku as well. He actually retired from football 6 years ago, has said he's a manager, no one's offered him a job in the last 6 years. With that little taster of what to expect today, I'm rather excited to take a look at Guernsey. Let's run the intro. We're going to be on the club profile screen. Has the team survived? Are they bankrupt? Have they been relegated? We're about to find out together. Okay, first things first, yes, the bank balance is negative £300 million, but they've got 5-star reputation still, so that's good. I have noticed facilities have dropped off, probably because as you go into the future of Football Manager, they do kind of slowly degrade and they haven't got any money to invest into them. I am still the only club legend, and I have just noticed here, they finished second in the Premier League, so 10 years in the future, still very much in title fights. And in fact, when you look at things here, okay, the dominance did continue for a little bit longer, of course. When we went 5 years into the future, we saw that they were continuing to win the Premier League. Good news, they did continue to win it until 2048-49, where for the first time, and then it repeated itself a year later, Man City did pip them to the league title. Current manager of Guernsey, by the way, Enzo Fernandez, of all people. Yeah, you can see here, he's won quite a lot of Guernsey, including more Champions Leagues. Okay, we'll come back to Enzo in a second. I want to check the Champions League. Past winners. Okay, that's a lot of Guernsey, isn't it? So the last time that Guernsey won the Champions League was this time here against Dortmund. Some people were upset, by the way, that I didn't add more stars to the Guernsey badge. At this rate, I would have had to have added, 7 or 8 stars? The design would be getting a little bit cluttered at this point. And the team that won them this Champions League final was this team here. Yeah, don't scratch your eyes. This was 8 years after I left. Alanis still in the starting 11. Cadman still in the starting 11. Sula still in the starting 11. Perez is there. Ohashi, Dahar, Grasser, Sweeney, Eric, Costa. In fact, the only player in the entire starting 11 that I didn't sign almost a decade earlier was Vidic here. Is Vidic good? Vidic is good. More of a striker than a centre mid, though, if you ask me. I'm surprised they've been playing him at centre mid. Also, they've probably been training him to play regista, looking at things. Guernsey habits die hard. Now, based on what we just saw there when it came to the actual starting 11 for that final, it doesn't seem like the team's changed that much in 8 years. I guess when you have £300 million of debt to pay off, you don't really sign many new players, you just rely on the existing ones. Sweeney, by the way, is now captain. He is also still listed as the key player at the club, and I mean, when you look at him, he is the best centre-back in the world. You have one of these players in every single Football Manager save game. He's 33 years old now. He's still this good. Grasser, by comparison, looks like his physicals are dropping off a little bit, but does have the media description of legendary centre-back. So, yeah, he's had quite a good career too. And in fact here, I've just loaded up the starting 11 to see what the team is that they've got 10 years into the future. I am shocked at how many of these players I recognise. Alanis is here, age 32, over 100 caps now for Mexico. He's won quite a lot of awards, looking at things here. Yeah, Jaime Alanis, rather good at football. Sula is 32 years old as well. Looks like he is starting to decline a little bit, which isn't entirely surprising. I am slightly concerned that having now looked at this team, having looked at how many of these players were players that I signed for the club, what's going to happen when all these players retire? I mean, Eric here, joining Juventus permanently at the end of the season, but then he's also agreed to retire at the end of the season. He's joining Juventus for for 11 days. I'm not going to question his career decisions. A 34-year-old Ryan Ohashi is also still at the club. 148 caps for Japan. Physical starting to drop off just a little bit. Looking at things here, he's just won the Champions League with Chelsea, having been loaned to them. I don't know how to feel about that. Tahar is still at the club, playing, I assume, left-back for them. You can see here, 118 caps for France. Don't think he really improved after we signed him, but to be fair, I feel like they've got £55 million worth of performances out of him over the years. Look how consistently he's been playing in the first team. I'm a little bit curious. Lev Gridin was a player who we saw them sign in the 5 years in the future video. He was one of their big transfers. He is still at the club. They signed him for £26 million. Look at the performances he's been given for them in recent years. Cadman now, 138 caps, 88 goals for England. Yeah, he's still doing quite well. In fact, recently he won the World Footballer of the Year. He's won it in 2049, 2045, and you can see here, Cadman, Eric, Ohashi also won it in previous years. In terms of Ballon d'Ors, because I know people care about this, Matthew Cadman won a Ballon d'Or for Guernsey. He is the only Guernsey player to win one, although Paul Parkin did also win a Ballon d'Or. Of course, just as a reminder, he went to Leipzig for £33 million. He is still just tearing it up for Leipzig. I'm annoyed that they've sold him. I'm still angry about this 5 years later. I did say we were going to circle back to Enzo Fernandez, who of course is their manager now. Of course, when we looked at 5 years in the future, Gallardo was manager. Fernandez came in, 3 years ago now? Gallardo just retired as well. People come to Guernsey to retire, apparently. I set the trend, then it was Zidane, then it was Gallardo. Not sure Enzo Fernandez is going to be here till he retires, because he is 49 years old. But so far, so good for him. You can see both Enzo Fernandez, Gallardo and Zidane, they all won a Premier League and a Champions League. It's like something you have to achieve as Guernsey manager. I do just want to look at their transfers over the last 5 years. Just as a little reminder, if you're a supporter on Patreon, these in the future save games for the immediate future ones are actually all available for you to download as part of the first team tier package. It will be available to everyone on Wednesday next week. So if there's stuff that I don't cover here, you'll be able to load up the save game in less than a week to have a look yourself. Just looking at the big transfers, Nicolas Pereira was one of the big exciting youngsters that we signed from the club. We noticed he'd broken into the first team last time out. He was sold for £60 million to Wolves. Since then, he's now gone on to move to Newcastle for £81 million. He's a rather good footballer. The other big player that they sold that year was Phil Guerra, who I don't think we signed. We don't care about him. I'll scroll through these departures, although it looks like a lot of the players they were just loaning out, to be honest. In 2046-47, they signed Mariusz Stash, this guy, Polish centre-back. That's a weird polygon for a centre-back. A centre-back with 7 jumping reach. Football Manager things. They signed him for £56 million. They were scammed. On the outs, you can see here, Hunyans went to Chelsea, which is a fairly significant sale, £58 million. He's not played amazingly for them, so maybe Guernsey got the better edge on that deal. Yannick Longello, remember this guy? I spent, 56? No, I didn't spend 56. What did I spend on him? It says I signed him on a free. I definitely didn't sign him on a free. Why does that show as a free? I signed him for £33 million. You guys saw it all. Longello here, signed for £33 million. I can promise you that as a fact. He's actually just turned into a very, very good striker. Now, whether or not he was £33 million well spent, I suppose, is a bit of a question mark. On the flip side, they did sell him for £56 million. So I guess it was a good sale, really. He looks like a very good player. Flegard also left the club to go to Real Madrid for £55 million. He played for 1 season and then was sold to Wolves for £41 million. I'm surprised someone paid that much for him. Not a bad centre-back, but he's not Real Madrid quality. In the 47-48 season, Rivero was signed. How much did they sign him for? £40 million 3 years ago, and this is how good he is now. They've not signed many players since I've left. The players they've signed are garbage. In the 48-49 season, I was going to say I don't care about the players they really signed, but no, one has jumped out at me that I am going to look at here. Dembele, 26-year-old Malayan international. They signed him for £69 million from Motherwell, who signed him for £78 million. What is going on with Motherwell? Motherwell, what are you doing? I say, what are you doing? They've got a lot of money from the looks of things. Landmarks. Did they have a tycoon takeover? Okay, they had a tycoon takeover 10 years ago. They've now scaled down their funding. They signed a player for 80... Motherwell signed this guy for £78 million. It's a weird, scary timeline in the future. On the outs in the 2048-49 season, they did make some pretty significant sales here. I'm looking through these names, expecting to recognise some players. This is a little while after we left. The one player who I do recognise is Demir here, who, of course, we snapped up for £12 million. Wasn't ever really a regular first-team member, but they still got £58 million for him, which is not too bad at all. And last but not least, exactly 10 years after I left the club, are there any players here that we recognise as my players leaving? I don't think there are. I mean, Ohashi out on loan, I guess, but that doesn't really count, does it? They did sell Martin Hughes here to Arsenal for £79 million. That has my curiosity. He came through their academy. He came through the Guernsey Academy. They raised him as one of their own. Then they've sold him for £69 million to Arsenal, where he played awfully. I mean, on the one hand, he looks like an okay player. On the other hand, I think they got quite a good deal to get £69 million for him. Now, I do have a sneaking suspicion that given the fact we're now 10 years in the future, when I go to 25 years, there's going to be a little bit less to look at because so many of the players that we know and love will have just left and stuff. Here is the overall best 11, 10 years after I left the club. Unsurprisingly, it's full of many players that we know. Players like Manny Wilford, who it looks like ended up playing for Nice. I mean, if we go for the where are they now of the best 11, what's this going to tell us? So 2 members have now retired. The rest continue to be involved in football. Where is Lemos? Lemos has requested to leave Chelsea. He spent a decade at Chelsea. That makes me feel... He should have spent a decade at Guernsey. I'm fine. Oh yeah, Hunyans is also at Chelsea, and so's Ohashi. Chelsea are just signing all my former players. So Lautaro Rios is still playing for Manchester United, 34 years old now. He's gone on to have a really good Premier League career, Rios, although safe to say his best years were in Guernsey colours. And we already know that Manny Wilford has retired. Danny Archer is now an assistant manager. I'll tell you what, I'd offer him a job if I could, but I can't, so I shan't. The only other player in this list was Brandon Charles, who last episode we saw got fired as a Guernsey youth team kind of coach. He retired. He didn't get another job after that. I've not really acknowledged it, have I? Alanis, 732 games for Guernsey, 405 goals. That is just a ridiculous record, isn't it? I remember when I signed Alanis and I got told he was a flop and overrated and people didn't know what they saw in him. I'm going to claim that checkmate. He's a legendary striker now. He was worth £9 million we paid? 9.5 million. Good deal. I'll tell you what I do want to do. I want to go to the 2039-40 season. This was our last season as manager, and I want to do a where are they now here. Are there any players that weren't in the overall best 11 that we missed before who are still playing? We've already looked at Paul Parkin. He makes me sad to look at. Henry Weber, now 32 years old, is playing for Lyon. He moved, as you can see here, from Guernsey to Bayern for 15 million. Then moved to Lyon for 45 million and got 19 goals. Reading numbers is hard. In 31 games. Didn't really ever match that performance, but he's gone on to have a good little career for himself. Coppo, by the way, is still at Arsenal. I mean, again, he's retiring at the end of the year, aged 33. That's a little bit surprising he's retiring so young, but you know what, Coppo, you do you. Jamfi is actually playing with Weber at Lyon. I love that. There's a little French contingent. They swam off the island, decided they like Guernsey so much they'd rather play in France than England. I have just loaded up the competitions kind of tab here so we can see everything they won after I left. I mean, it's safe to say they've been rather successful. They've won now 2 Club World Championships. How many FA Cups have they won? You know, that one competition I could never win. They won it 4 times in the decade after I left, runner-up twice as well. Carabao Cup, plenty of cans of Carabao being drank. They've won that on, 4 occasions in the last 10 years? And in fact, I think we just look at a satisfying trophy screen here. 8 Champions League wins, 5 Champions League wins in the decade after I left is pretty mad. Obviously, the AI managing the team for that period of time, but using a lot of our players. 10 Premier League titles, 2 Club World Cups, 6 Super Cups. Not a great record, actually, in Super Cups, looking at things there. 4 FA Cup wins, and of course, a whole host of other trophies, including many that, they can't win. I don't think they're going to be winning a Southern League Premier South trophy anytime soon. I mean, it's been a while, hasn't it, since the 2024-25 season where we won it. I will have a look at the records when we get to 25 years in the future, but if you want to look at the records as they were 10 years in the future, here they are right now. Grasser currently has the most league appearances by any player. Alanis has the most league goals. Brandon Charles still holds the record for goals in a season, and Tyler Forbes still holds the record for highest rating. I love the fact there's a blend of the newer legends of Guernsey combined with some of those legends that came about in the lower league levels. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Also, Maicon Costa, 37 clean sheets in a season. Manny Wilford could never. Obviously, it's impossible to condense down 10 years of Football Manager into a nice, concise video, but I've tried to do my very best there. We're going to go a further 15 years into the future. The year is going to be 2065, 25 years after I left Guernsey, 15 years beyond this point. Are the finances going to be okay? Is the club still going to be in the Premier League? Are they still going to be fighting for Premier League titles? I'm a little bit worried for all of those things. Let's go see what became of the Green Lions, shall we? Okay, I'm back sooner than I expected. There was something that I seamlessly need to edit in, hence the fact I'm now drawing attention to it. I wanted to look at players that were homegrown at Guernsey that kind of currently exist in this universe 10 years in the future. When I go 25 years in the future, it's going to be players we don't recognise. But I thought it'd be nice to look at some of the players that came through the academy. This is a way we can do it. First things first, Luke Steer left Guernsey on a free transfer to go to Union Berlin. He then moved for £80 million to Chelsea, and he is comfortably one of the world's best midfielders / centre-backs. I mean, in hindsight, signing him for £39 million was a punt, but given the fact that he left on a free and now he plays for Chelsea, it's another Guernsey player playing for Chelsea. That's deeply upsetting. Now, we already looked at Martin Hughes, but Tegan Gill here was another player who came through the academy after we left the club. He left Guernsey to join Arsenal for £22 million. Cool to see this kind of player being produced by the academy, although he's not that amazing. He has got 7 caps for England, so he's not terrible. Madakai was one of the youngsters that we snapped up during our kind of final spending spree at the club. We signed him for £11 million. He left to go on a free to Stuttgart and then a year later moved for £31 million. Safe to say now, he is declining a little bit as a player. Certainly isn't a £30 million player now, but still, another player that Guernsey let go for criminally cheap. Steve McDonnell plays for Man City. It's the worst thing since Parkin going to Leipzig, this. They let him go to Crystal Palace for £36 million. He's now moved to Man City. He is playing regularly for the England national team. He's a sick player, to be fair. He's a really, really good right-back, especially in right-back terms. Football Manager just doesn't produce wing-backs, as we've already established. He's annoyingly good. He's won 2 Premier League titles now with Man City, hasn't he, as well, I've just realised. Liam Henderson was one of the Scottish players I was really excited about when we signed him. He also left to go on a free. Seems like Guernsey just couldn't offer contracts to a lot of young players, potentially due to my financial management, although no comment, Your Honour. And yeah, there's a lot of players that have come through the Guernsey Academy, aren't there, when you scroll through things like this? It's kind of mad. Alfred Cardenas was a player who I think I signed from Barcelona right at the end of things. Yeah, we agreed to sign him ahead of time. They signed him for £8.5 million. He also left on a free transfer, and this year he just got 21 goals for Milan. I just realised, we've not looked at how Noah NLBM II is going. I was going to say the whole name. Noah Lebret Mabulu II. 28 years old. 21 caps for France. My final signing I made in homage to the legend that was. To be fair, he's now got double-figure goals for the last 6 seasons in the Premier League. So, for a bit of a meme signing, he's actually done okay. Okay, right, now I am officially ready to go 25 years into the future. This save game is available for everyone to download next Wednesday. If you're on Patreon, you can get it now. We're going to go forward now to those 25 years. I'll join you in a mo, slap in the transition editing jack, and please don't be relegated. Please don't be. That's all I ask for. Wycombe Wanderers are in the Championship. Now, yeah, they did just finish bottom of the Championship, and they did do it without the man who I wanted to look at, McKillop. But you know, stuff happened. Where is McKillop in this list? McKillop was their manager for a bit. Where is he? He's here. He's retired as a staff, aged 40. What is it with everyone retiring as staff members really early? I wanted one of my former players to be Guernsey manager. Instead, this is what's happening. That said, there are still a few of my players here. Greg is now manager of Huesca in Spain. He's been managing in Spain a little bit. Greg is actually a very good manager. Can we all agree? He's a better manager than he was a goalkeeper. Vincic is 44 years old. He's not had a job as a manager in the last 7 years, so he's probably going to retire soon as well. And I have also just spotted here, João Graça is currently an unemployed manager. He was just fired as manager of Fulham, incidentally. I realise you guys can't see it behind my head. Here it is. He was relegated as Fulham manager. Again, he is actually quite a good manager. Graça and Greg should work together. They'd be great. They could be like the Cowley brothers, but they could be the Guernsey brothers. Speaking of which, probably should look at Guernsey, and here is Guernsey. Lots is different, and there's something here that is making me feel warm and fuzzy inside. They've moved stadiums, and they've moved to the Work the Space Arena. 69,000 seater capacity. Nice. Built just 1 year ago. They spent 30 years in the Guernsey Stadium, and now they've named a stadium after me. I am a legend at the club. I am the only legend at the club, incidentally. Oh, I feel warm and fuzzy. I am feeling warm and fuzzy. I have now just seen the league history graph and I am starting to panic just a little bit. Right, let's look at this here. So we left things in 2050. Since then, they finished 5th. Then they won the Premier League for the last time they'd win the Premier League in the next, many, many years. And since then, they've kind of hovered around the top 4. They finished 14th in 2058-59. And since then, it's kind of just been mid-table mediocrity, sadly. But they have still got worldwide reputation, and the bank balance is in the positive. Just ignore the fact there's a loan debt of almost £600 million. Bizarrely, I think the social media following has dropped. I feel like that was nearly like 85 million. It's now at 50 million. Maybe Twitter finally got deleted. By the way, speaking of which, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you should. We'll use this as a plug. And also, I am now on the alternative of the week, which is Threads. You know, we've all turned to Zuckerberg in our time of need on social media. It's Work the Space there as well. So if you use any social media platform, search Work the Space. I'm probably there. If Twitter goes bye-bye, if the world ends, if the YouTube channel gets nuked, hopefully that doesn't happen. I'll be on the internet somewhere else, I hope. So they won the Premier League in 2052. They didn't win a Champions League in the last 15 years. They did finish runner-up in the Club World Cup in 2049. I think we missed that before. They've not won an FA Cup. They did win a UEFA Super Cup, and in fact, you can see here, they won a Europa League last year. So they were playing Champions League football this year, despite the fact they have now gone to finish 14th. I'm looking at the manager history now. There's suddenly a lot more managers than there were before. You can see here, Enzo Fernandez left the manager role. Then came in Franjic, who won an FA Cup and then was sacked in less than a year. Then Camavinga came in as manager, and he won that Premier League title we looked at before. So Camavinga, Guernsey legend of sorts. Good little manager as well. Looks very young for a 62-year-old, mind you. He's been doing really, really well. And then since then, they've gone through a load of different managers. Codogno has taken over. He is a regen manager who looks quite good. Currently Villa manager. Then we've got Kenzie Addons who came in. Then Ian Kerr, and then currently it's David Koloko. I hope I've said that correctly. David, I'm sorry. I mean, no offence. 60 years old, Dutch, former international, now manager of Guernsey on £125,000 a week. Here is a look at the overall best 11 in the future. Maicon Costa got 1,000 appearances for the club. He got to 1,020. He played for Guernsey for 21 years. That's mad. He retired aged 38. He was at the club for so long. 654 appearances and exactly 500 goals conceded in the league. I like the idea that the 500th goal went in and he thought, you know what, that's me done. I'm retiring now. He's done quite well over the years. You can see all the stuff he won. Sadly, he's not stayed on to be a coach or anything. Elsewhere, Sweeney, 947 appearances for the club. He retired a Guernsey legend, things we love to see. Dehar didn't retire a Guernsey legend, spent a year at Auxerre, aged 38. He retired. It looks like, actually, a lot of these players that we had retired quite late on in their career, and a lot of them really stuck it out at Guernsey. Sula stuck it out at Guernsey. Cadman did go to Wolves at the end of things. 90 goals for England, 146 caps as well. He joined Wolves for £10 million. They got a bargain for a year. Alanis nearly got to 1,000 appearances, but what he did get was 488 goals during his time at the club. Again, retired at Guernsey, a legend. It's cool to see how many players joined the team, stayed for 2 decades, and then were just like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I like it here. This team is me. Grasser, did you do the same? Grasser, did you stick it out at Guernsey forever? No, he went to Blackburn for 2.1 million. Perez, interestingly enough, got 800 appearances for the club. He ended up going to Blackburn to end his career. You might remember in our penultimate season, we loaned him out to Leeds United to give him some minutes. And after that, he came in and just made a name for himself. He looks like he was an essential part of the team. And elsewhere, Ohashi didn't quite get as many appearances as other players. But as you can see here, after that loan spell at Chelsea, he played for 1 more year at Guernsey. And then retired. I still can't get over the fact they play at the Work the Space. It's just cool, isn't it? It's just... I realise that capacity is larger than the population of Guernsey. Literally everyone on the island can come watch games. I want to look at more details for it. Detailed view. Okay, state-of-the-art conditions. We love that. I wish the pitch size was like either the biggest or smallest pitch size in homage to our earlier seasons at the club. Can anyone remember that? I think it was in the first, second or third season where I decided to have the biggest pitch possible. They should have brought that back. Has just dawned on me here, by the way, facilities have really degraded over time. Obviously, they've not got the money to invest into things, although they have at least got a positive bank balance at the moment. Given the fact they're 14th, and this is a position they've fallen into before, a little bit concerned for what that could mean for the longer-term future. I talked about them finishing 14th. I realise that is for the season before this one. They've actually just finished 9th in the Premier League. The winners of the title, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and before that, Blackburn won the title 3 out of the last 4 years. What kind of cursed universe is this, where Blackburn and Wolves are the two teams fighting it out at the top of the Premier League? I don't like this reality. Guernsey haven't won any Champions Leagues in recent years. Did they finish runner-up in any recent years? No. Blackburn have finished runner-up twice, though. What is going on with Blackburn? Blackburn, who is your key player? Ricky Rowney. Things are becoming more clear. I was thinking I was going to look here and they were going to have had a Tycoon takeover. They didn't even have a Tycoon takeover. Blackburn are just doing their own park to Prem. And also, Enzo Fernandez, who was managing Guernsey, he's now Blackburn manager, having all this success. I hope he's not in the club favoured personnel anymore at Guernsey. In fact, looking at the favoured personnel, you can see here, we are top of the pops. We are the only legend at the club, but still, the likes of NLBM, Cadman, Ohashi, I mean, you can see the names here. Lots of the players that we know and love, still very high on this list. In terms of current players at the club who are in the favourite personnel, there's a couple who I'm curious about. The first is Guinazu. I've definitely said that incorrectly. This guy is currently a legend at Guernsey. They signed him for £8.5 million. He's played over 300 league games for the club. And elsewhere, Ramiro Perez has now played 372 games. Another Argentine player signed from Boca. He looks very good as well. Looks like Guernsey have just kind of got an Argentine thing going on at the club. Indeed, they have. In my era, it was Uruguay. Here now, it's Argentina and Italy, looking at things. And a couple of Mexican players. I like the idea they grew up watching Alanis playing for Guernsey and decided Guernsey were their Premier League team. So in terms of records, Alanis ended up with 291 league goals. Most league appearances, Maicon Costa ended up getting the record at 654. Elsewhere, you can see here, Brandon Charles, Tyler Forbes, they still have a place in the history of the club. Brandon Charles, most player of the match awards in a season, still up there. Diallo with that 2040 record of 31 assists. That's a mouthful. Has the most assists. And I mean, you could see all the other records here. I feel like Guernsey are doing okay right now. I feel like at this point, as long as they deal with the loan debt, the club is kind of balancing out a little bit. Whether or not in a further 25 and then 50 more years, it's still going to be quite as balanced, I suppose, remains to be seen. As always with these in the future videos, there are always going to be little things that I miss. It's impossible to condense down 25 years of Football Manager into a video like this one, but I've tried my damnedest. Next time out, which will be on Monday, we will be doing our 50 and 100 year in the future look at things. So look forward to that one. There won't be a video tomorrow. I'm in the process of holidaying the 100 years to get into the future. It's taken over an hour per season at the moment, so I need a few days to continue the simulations and also rack up my energy bill. I don't know about anyone else, I just feel warm and fuzzy inside about the fact they've got a new stadium. One thing I have noticed, and I'm going to mention this now in the hopes that maybe someone at Sports Interactive can look into this, you include a direct plea to the developer at the end of the video, they might see it. So the club moved to their new stadium in 2034, and I noticed they moved into the Space Arena 30 years later. Used to be in Football Manager, you couldn't have more than one new stadium in 30 years, and then a year or two ago, it was changed so that didn't apply anymore, and whilst you couldn't request a stadium, the board could take it into their own hands. Looks like maybe this year in Football Manager that broke, which is why they had to wait 30 years for this stadium to be built when they were filling out the old stadium for 3 decades prior. So if anyone at Sports Interactive is here watching this, I think you might have broken that at some point. If you could fix it so people like me don't have to wait 30 years for a new stadium, that'd be good. Thank you. Just for next year, fix it. I need it for next year's Park to Prem. That's all I'm saying. Right, gang, we are going to leave things there. If I missed anything, let me know it down below. If there's anything you'd like to see in particular in the 50 and 100 years in the future videos that I've not already covered here, let me know it down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this little look into the Guernsey alternative universe of the future. Until next time, take it easy. It's me, Jack, and I'll see you all again on the next one. I'm out.